In the chilling isolation of a snowbound Brooklyn apartment, Rosario weaves a tale of generational grief and supernatural dread, anchored by a premise ripe with potential yet hampered by its execution. Directed by Felipe Vargas in his feature debut, the film follows Rosario, a finance professional estranged from her roots, who confronts a night of terror after her grandmother Griselda's death. Tasked with guarding the corpse until an ambulance braves the storm, Rosario's vigil unravels into a nightmare when Griselda's body becomes a vessel for malevolent forces tied to Palo Mayombe, an Afro-Cuban religious practice. What begins as a somber reckoning with family legacies soon spirals into a chaotic clash of cultural identity, guilt, and body horror, a mix that thrills in moments but struggles to coalesce into a satisfying whole. The film opens with a poignant flashback to Rosario's childhood, where her first communion celebration juxtaposes her family's Catholic devotion with her grandmother's clandestine rituals. Griselda, shrouded in secrecy, dismisses the family's faith, hinting at a darker spiritual allegiance. This early scene sets up the central conflict: Rosario's journey from an assimilated woman who silences her grandmother's calls and hides her heritage to a reluctant participant in a supernatural inheritance. When Griselda dies, Rosario's return to her grandmother's decrepit apartment building becomes a literal and metaphorical descent into a past she's tried to bury. The setting, a labyrinth of peeling wallpaper and flickering lights, oozes unease, amplified by the blizzard that traps Rosario inside, cutting her off from help and amplifying her isolation. Vargas excels in crafting atmospheric dread. The apartment, cluttered with relics of Griselda's practice, candles, cauldrons, and cryptic symbols, feels like a character itself, its shadows hiding both psychological and supernatural threats. Practical effects shine here. Griselda's corpse, riddled with unsettling markings, twitches to life with grotesque precision, her jaw unhinging in a way that evokes body horror classics. A recurring hallucination of Rosario's deceased mother, her face melting into maggot-infested rot, is viscerally disturbing, blending grief with visceral terror. These moments channel Sam Raimi's playful grotesquerie, particularly in the film's final act, where the camera whirls through a hidden ritual chamber as Rosario battles spectral forces. Yet unlike Raimi's films, which balance horror with kinetic energy, Rosario often feels static, relying on jump scares and familiar tropes that lack inventiveness. Where the film falters most is its narrative cohesion. Rosario's actions frequently defy logic, driven more by plot necessity than character motivation. After discovering Griselda's Palo artifacts, she inexplicably dabbles in rituals she barely understands, speeding through incantations as if reading a recipe. The script, penned by Alan Treza, introduces intriguing ideas: the weight of immigrant expectation, the clash between Catholic guilt and ancestral practices, but reduces them to superficial motifs. A subplot involving Rosario's father, Jose Zuniga, who warns her not to be alone with the body, hints at generational secrets but dissolves into rushed exposition. Similarly, the building's superintendent, Paul Benvictor, and a nosy neighbor, David Dastmalchian, team with eccentric menace, yet their roles amount to red herrings, their oddball quirks leading nowhere. The exploration of Palo Mayombe, while visually striking, treads into murky cultural territory. The film opens with text explaining Palo's roots as an Afro-Cuban tradition, yet Griselda's Mexican heritage creates a dissonance never addressed. Palo's depiction as a conduit for vengeful spirits and cursed cauldrons leans into exoticized voodoo stereotypes, reducing a rich spiritual practice to a plot device. This oversight is compounded by the underdeveloped immigrant narrative. Rosario's guilt over abandoning her family's struggles, illustrated in a haunting vision of her parents' perilous border crossing, could have anchored the horror in emotional reality. Instead, these themes feel tacked on, their resonance diluted by the film's frenetic third act, which prioritizes gore over introspection. Emeraude Tubia delivers a committed performance, her portrayal of Rosario oscillating between brittle detachment and raw panic. In quieter moments, she conveys the character's internal rift, the tension between her polished corporate identity and the primal fear unearthing her buried self. Constanza Gutierrez, though limited to corpse duty, lingers as a spectral presence, her raspy voice echoing through phone calls that blur the line between hallucination and haunting. The supporting cast, however, is underserved. David Dastmalchian's eccentric neighbor, initially unsettling, becomes a cartoonish foil, while Diana Lyne's spectral mother haunts the edges of the frame without deepening the emotional stakes. The film's pacing exacerbates its flaws. A sluggish first act spends too long establishing Rosario's guilt and the apartment's layout, delaying the supernatural onslaught. When the horror arrives, it's a barrage of disjointed set pieces, walls bleeding black ooze, shadowy figures lunging from closets, and a climactic ritual that borrows liberally from Hereditary's occult crescendo. While these sequences showcase Vargas' knack for gruesome imagery, a throat slit with a ceremonial knife, a face peeled back to reveal squirming insects, they lack the narrative scaffolding to make them impactful. The abrupt introduction of Griselda's backstory in the final minutes, revealing her pact with dark forces to protect her family, feels rushed, undermining the pathos of her and Rosario's relationship. Yet Rosario isn't without merit. Its exploration of diasporic identity, though half-baked, lingers in quieter moments. A scene where Rosario, covered in grime and blood, clutches a family photo amid the chaos, underscores the cost of assimilation, the erasure of self to fit into a hostile world. The snowstorm, a metaphor for Rosario's emotional frost, isolates her in a purgatory between cultures, forcing her to confront what she suppressed. These glimmers of depth suggest a stronger film lurking beneath the surface, one that intertwines personal and supernatural horror with more care. Technical elements elevate the material. Antonio Riestra's cinematography bathes the apartment in sickly greens and ambers, the palette shifting as Rosario's sanity unravels. The sound design, a cacophony of howling winds, creaking floorboards, and distorted whispers, immerses viewers in her paranoia. Nicholas Pike's score melds choral chants with dissonant strings, echoing the clash of Catholic and Palo iconography. Rosario is a film of halves, a compelling lead performance trapped in a muddled script, striking visuals undermined by derivative scares, and a rich cultural premise diluted by execution. It's a promising debut for Vargas, showcasing his flair for atmosphere and practical effects, but a reminder that horror thrives not just on what's seen, but what's felt. The true terror of losing one's identity, to assimilation, to trauma, to the secrets of the past, remains frustratingly out of reach, buried beneath the snow and the blood. I hope you enjoyed this review. If you did, please like, subscribe, and hit the bell to stay up to date with all my movie reviews and movie analysis. I always appreciate your time, and I hope to see you in my next video.